I think I've started like hallucinating a little bit. Hello, we're back again. So it's actually been, it's not the next day, it's a few days later because I was in some deep state of recovery. Yeah, I was in bed for a long while after that. But anywho, now that we're all done with that and I've read, can't actually remember how many pages it is, but it also meant that it gave me the opportunity to finish reading The Vanishing Act of Esme Lennox, so I can actually do a full sort of like, I'm not going to do full-length like reviews of all of them, I'm just going to give quick summary reviews of all of them, but it means that I can actually give a proper review of the book as well now. But yeah, first of all, I thought I'd review the whole process. I actually quite enjoyed it. It didn't feel like I was reading and it just suddenly was like the end of the day and I was like, oh my god, that's passed so quickly. I really enjoyed myself. I had loads of fun doing it. I really enjoyed all the books that I read, which was really great. Luckily, like, I think Fire and Blood was the most difficult one to get through and I still really enjoyed reading it, so that's always a bonus. I think if I tried it again, like, it was fine. I was fine until about 11, 12 o'clock and then it started getting, actually it was probably 12 o'clock after I finished, maybe even a bit after that actually. I think it was like getting into Red Queen was quite difficult. Once I was into it I was fine, but that's when it started really hitting me while I was reading Red Queen, so probably just after midnight, which was already a good 19 hours in or something, so that was a bit of a struggle. Yeah, I think I would probably not do 24 hours if I did it again. I think I'd probably wake up at a normal time and maybe just do a 12-hour read, roughly. I think 15 max. I don't think I'd ever try to do the 24 again unless I really... I think if you're doing that, you can't really have books that are really tough to get through or you're not particularly enjoying. They have to be books that you enjoy. Like, I started trying on Robinson Crusoe and it just did not happen. Just the writing style was not for me. I will try read it in the future, but if you're doing a long period of time, I think you need books that you're going to really enjoy and keep you gripped. So overall, I would recommend it. So if you want to do it as well, let me know about it. I'd love to know if other people want to do something like that. Get a bit of a trend going maybe. But now onto the actual individual books. So I'll go through in order that I read them. First up, A Good Girl's Guide to Murder. I loved this. It was so good. I'll read you the blurb and then embellish on a bit. So, the case is closed. 5 years ago, schoolgirl Andy Bell was murdered by Sal Singh. The police know he did it. Everyone in town knows he did it. But having grown up in the same small town that was consumed by the murder, Pippa Fitzmoby isn't so sure. When she chooses the case as the topic of her final year project, she starts to uncover secrets that someone in town desperately wants to stay hidden. And if the real killer is still out there, how far will they go to keep Pip from the truth? So basically, she's digging up an old murder, and yeah, there's a few cliches, but I really liked that you could not tell. I didn't guess who the murderer was until it was like, literally like, they figured it out in the book themselves, and like at that point I was figuring it out at the same time. So I really liked that because it wasn't like an obvious one, and even when you thought you had it, like, it wasn't, and there were just some unexpected twists in there. And I think if I had sat down and really thought about it, like, some of the things wouldn't have, like, if I had been reading it slower and it had breaks in between and was actually like really thinking about it, maybe. I just really enjoyed it. It didn't go the way that you expected it to go, and it was very dynamic. There were lots of different elements to it and lots of different situations and people all pulled together, and so it just had a really diverse and like interesting range of characters, and nothing happened as expected, and so it kept you on your toes the whole time, which I really loved. So yeah, loved this one. The next went on to This Giant, The Brick 2.0 maybe, Fire and Blood. Yeah, I thought it was interesting. Like, obviously, well, not necessarily obviously, but you would think you would need an interesting Game of Thrones. I mean, I think if you want to sit down and properly go through this, if you're doing what I did, you probably need to have some idea of what Game of Thrones is about. I think it's better to read it if you are very familiar with Game of Thrones, because there's not lots of little like not Easter eggs, but like it explains a lot and there's some nods to things like some characters like have the same name earlier back, and it's nice to sort of like spot like, oh, Daenerys Targaryen isn't the first Daenerys Targaryen. I mean, I think people already knew that, but like there were some nice little nods. And I was worried it was going to be, I've tried reading the Silmarillion before, and I might give that another go soon, but when I tried to read it, I found that it was very much, this happened, then this happened, then this happened. Whereas here, it takes a much more story approach to it. It's still going through everything that happened, but it's telling a story. It's almost like lots of different fables. You could take it as almost a collection of short stories. Each chapter works not quite standalone, but is almost its own short story. So that's really good. It was not manageable, but also like made manageable, and the writing style was, yeah, much more story-like. Like there's a book that I loved when I was younger, and I think it was called Our Island Story or something, and it was basically just the history of Great Britain, going way back to like Queen Boudica and all that things, and basically again each chapter was sort of like a different segment of our history, and I used to read that book in history instead of actually paying attention to what was going on, but I really enjoyed that. Like it wasn't like, oh my god, this is my favourite work of literature, but I enjoyed it from an educational point of view. Like it was interesting, and it was written in a way that I enjoyed reading it because it made it more like a story. Like it was telling these things as stories instead of like reading a textbook, which is what I felt the Silmarillion was more like. So this was written in a very manageable way, I found. But yeah, it's still a big book. It's still like the character focus changes, and it's always from a narrator's point of view as opposed to like the characters, so it can be quite hard going. That's why it took me 12 hours to read. But anywho, overall I enjoyed it. Oh god, next up we had This Lie Will Kill You, and I'll just read you the blurb again. You are cordially invited to tell the truth or face the consequences. 1 year ago there was a party. At the party someone died. Until now no one has told the truth about what happened. Tonight the 5 survivors arrive at an isolated mansion, expecting to compete in a contest with a $50,000 prize. $50,000 prize even. Nobody questions the odd, rather exclusive invitation until it's too late. 5 arrived, but not all can leave. Will the truth set them free, or will their lies destroy them all? So this is the one where I started freaking out because it was the middle of the night and it was quite terrifying to begin with. I'm not good with horror. I mean, this wasn't like really horror, but horror enough that I was freaking myself out a lot. Actually, as the book went on, it got less scary, but it's kind of another murder mystery, and you're led to think that people are involved or aren't involved, and it's just very cleverly done. I would say I preferred A Good Girl's Guide to Murder, but I don't know if that's just because I was absolutely terrified for like the first half of this. Again, it's sort of got it's not your usual cast of characters, I don't think. I mean, there is the usual cast of characters, but they're not how you would imagine them to be, sort of. And also it takes several twists. I mean, I'd say it was slightly more predictable than the other one, but it did take some very unexpected twists and some very freaky ones as well. But overall, yeah, I just enjoyed it. And I don't know why I keep judging books on how easy it was to guess whodunit. I mean, this wasn't even really a proper whodunit. I mean, sort of. This is a different take on a whodunit sort of situation, and it was a very interesting take on a whodunit thing, a very fresh take on how to do it. So yeah, I enjoyed that. And then we moved on to Red Queen. I don't want to upset people because there's been a lot of raving about this. I enjoyed the book. This is my normal go-to genre, like style, everything about it is my normal go-to. This is what I want to read. And I don't know if it's because that's my normal go-to and I've read so much of it that it just felt so predictable. Like, I predicted the twist at the end literally as soon as the character was introduced. The set follows the same structure as so many other books that I've read, and I just knew what was going to happen. Not what was going to happen, but like none of the twists properly came as a surprise to me. Like, I enjoyed it for what it was. I enjoyed the world that was created, but it just seemed very similar to lots of other books I had read, and while I really enjoyed it, I don't think I get it on the same level as everyone else does. I don't see what I clearly don't see what everyone else is seeing that sets it at sort of like a level above all the other ones that are so similar to it. And like, this isn't this book being really similar to others, it's just all of the books in this like setting and genre seem to be so similar, and I don't think that's she's copying other people. I think it's just the way things have ended up with that genre. But I'll read the blurb as well so you get a sense of it. This is a world divided by blood, red or silver. The Reds are commoners ruled by a silver elite in possession of godlike superpowers. And to 17-year-old Mare, a red girl from the poverty-stricken stilts, it seems like nothing will ever change. But Mare possesses a deadly talent of her own, one that threatens to destroy the balance of power. Fearful of her potential, the Silvers hide Mare in plain view, declaring her a long-lost Silver Princess. Knowing that one false move will mean her death, Mare must use her new position to bring down the regime, from the inside. Now Mare has entered a game of betrayal and lies. This is Reds against Silvers, Prince against Prince, and Mare against her own heart. I mean, I'll let people make their own minds up. Like, I thought it was a very good book, I just don't think it sort of quite lived up to the blurb. Like, from saying like she possesses a deadly talent of her own, I just sort of expected more of her talent and like what she would do as the long lost Silver Princess. Like, I expected like a bit more, I think. I think the concept was good. I think the author could have potentially pushed it further. Yeah, I just don't think, I think she just stuck to the safe sort of trope. I don't know, not the trope. I think with some of the things like Mare's powers, I think she could have gone bigger. With what she did in the past, I think she could have gone bigger, because now it's just left following the same sort of structure as things like, oh god, if anyone's read The Selection, it felt similar to that. It felt similar to The Hunger Games. What were the other ones that I was comparing it to? There's so many that I've read. The Testing, Divergent, Everless, which I really loved Everless actually when I read that, and I want to read the next one. I basically thought Everless was sort of a better version of this. I'm sorry, I really enjoyed this book. This isn't like me, I'm not trying to put the book down, I just think it's a victim of its genre. That's how I'm gonna put it. If all the other books in its genre did not exist, it would have been excellent, but I think I've just read too much of similar books for it to blow me away like it seems to have done with other people. Yeah, I think she needed to go bigger with her vision for this. I mean, it might do in some of the later books. I haven't read any of them. I would like to, have not yet. We're on to the last one, and that is The Vanishing Act of Esme Lennox. The Vanishing Act of Esme Lennox. Do the blurb again. Edinburgh in the 1930s. The Lennox family is having trouble with its youngest daughter. Esme is outspoken, unconventional, and repeatedly embarrasses them in polite society. Something will have to be done. Years later, a young woman named Iris Lockhart receives a letter informing her that she has a great aunt in a psychiatric unit who is about to be released. Iris has never heard of Esme Lennox, and the one person who should know more, her grandmother Kitty, seems unable to answer Iris's questions. What could Esme have done to warrant a lifetime in an institution? And how is it possible for a person to be so completely erased from a family's history? The Vanishing Act of Esme Lennox is a stunning depiction of a life stolen and reclaimed. This book, it really just got me. Like, it's obviously not like YA fantasy or anything, it's completely different from all the other books I read, and it really got me. Like, so it doesn't have chapters, it flicks between perspectives, and so they're written in different ways. Like, first of all, you see it from Esme's point of view, and then you see it from Iris's point of view, like Esme's point of view in the 1930s, then to Iris's point of view, modern day, and then there's also a third perspective which comes into play later on, and that turns out, it took me a bit to work out, but it's Kitty's perspective, and you learn quite early on that Kitty is in a home and is suffering from Alzheimer's pretty badly, and that reflects in the style of writing for Kitty because it's all broken up and swaps from memory to memory as things go through her head. And so the writing was like, you could tell immediately who was behind each part. So that was really clever, and it just kept flitting between them all. There wasn't like an actual break, and it really flowed. I found it left me questioning, like it didn't completely resolve, it left it open-ended, but I think it ended on, well, there were just some quite shocking things that happened in it, and not like it affected me, but it really got me. I think it's a very powerful book, and it really like not makes you do soul searching, but like, well, kind of does. Really makes you contemplate things. It makes you think not just about yourself, but about like the society that we're in, not in a forced way, but just when you're reading it and reading the things that are happening. There was a lot, at least for me, being horrified by the things that are happening, not like all the time, obviously, like a lot of it wasn't all just like traumatic, shocking things. Like that was only like a few times in it. It seemed like a different world, and yet you just knew reading it that these were all things that happened regularly and still probably do happen in many places across the world, and something like this is something that could realistically have happened. Just thinking about it, it really makes you stop and think about the world that we're living in. Yeah, basically I really enjoyed it. I thought it was really good, and it left me reeling a little bit. It covered a lot of topics and, you know, over a range of time, but I read it very quickly. It took me maybe, wait, how long is it? It's like just under 300 pages. It took me less than 2 hours to finish it the other day, and so I got through it quite quickly. It's a very easy read. Yeah, would not recommend for like kids, but yeah, teenagers up. I think it's a really, I don't know what to say other than just say it's a really good read. But yeah, let me know if you've read any of these books. Like, I'd love to hear if our opinions match. You've probably read them under very different circumstances to me though, so maybe our opinions will differ because I was reading them under incredibly, like, not stressful, but like, I'm pretty sure I was hallucinating a little bit by the end. I was like, I can hear things, or like, I'm seeing things. I mean, that might have just been the birds singing because the birds were awake before I went to sleep, and that was painful. Let me know if you enjoyed watching my slow descent to madness, and yeah, if you're intending on doing something like this, let me know if you're reading any of the books, and hopefully I'll see you in my next video. Bye!